from Mike Katz losing his lucky shirt right before the Mr. Universe competition, to Arnold snitching on Tom Platz's injury to the judges.
I told Arnold, and Arnold told the judge, and this judge told that judge. So when I went on stage, Tom, can you walk forward, please? Can you show me your left bicep? Oh my God.
In this video, we're exposing the shocking sabotage that destroyed bodybuilders' dreams on stage. Mike Katz. The most infamous case of clothing theft in bodybuilding history happened in 1975 at the Mr. Universe competition in Pretoria, South Africa. Mike Katz, a towering figure of the golden era who would later become immortalized in the legendary documentary Pumping Iron, was preparing for what he believed would be his breakthrough moment. After years of trying, 4 years to win Mr. Connecticut, 4 years to win Mr. America, this was supposed to be his 5th year attempting to capture the Mr. Universe crown. But Mike Katz had a secret weapon, or so he thought: his lucky yellow t-shirt. This wasn't just any piece of clothing. For Katz, this shirt represented confidence, routine, and psychological comfort in the high-pressure environment of professional competition. He wore it religiously during his pre-show preparation, and it had become an integral part of his mental game. However, his rival Ken Waller had different plans. In what would become one of the most calculated acts of psychological warfare in bodybuilding history, Waller allegedly snuck into the locker room and stole Katz's beloved yellow shirt just hours before the competition began. The cameras of Pumping Iron captured what happened next, a moment so raw and devastating that it remains one of the most memorable scenes in sports documentary history. Katz was shown frantically searching through his belongings, his face contorted with confusion and rising panic. As the reality set in that his shirt was gone, viewers could see him fighting back tears, his mental preparation completely shattered.
It's like a dog, you can kick a dog so long and it'll do two things. It's either going to roll over and die, or it's going to bite you and attack you. And I'm the kind of a person who is the type of a dog who would fight back. I wasn't going to roll over and quit.
Despite his resilience and determination to push forward, the psychological damage was done. Katz's focus was scattered, his usual confidence replaced with visible distress. When the final placings were announced, Mike Katz finished in 4th place in the tall class, while Ken Waller walked away with both the tall class victory and the overall Mr. Universe title. In later interviews, Katz would reflect on the incident as one of the defining humiliations of his competitive career. While some have debated whether elements of the story were dramatized for the documentary, multiple sources confirmed that the theft occurred and had a devastating impact on Katz's performance. The incident became a cautionary tale about the importance of mental preparation in bodybuilding and how personal items can be weaponized in the sport's high-pressure environment. And while Katz lost his edge before even stepping on stage, another legend was undone in a very different way. Tom Platz. Tom Platz, universally known as the Quadfather for possessing the most legendary leg development in bodybuilding history, walked into the 1982 Mr. Olympia in London carrying a devastating secret. Just 2 weeks before the most important competition of his career, Platz had suffered a severe bicep tear that left him unable to use the muscle properly. In an era before social media and instant information sharing, Platz believed he could hide the injury through strategic posing and careful positioning.
2 weeks to go, I can't use my bicep at all. So I called Mike Menser. I said, Mike, show me how to use these stupid Nautilus machines where you don't have to use your biceps. You can sort of, do pullovers like this without your biceps. Mike was kind of sat down with me in the gym. He goes, he showed me everything I could do in the gym without using my biceps.
Platz worked tirelessly with Mike Menser to develop workarounds, learning how to train his upper body without engaging his injured bicep. He meticulously planned his posing routine to conceal the weakness, believing he could make it through prejudging and the finals without anyone noticing the deficit. His conditioning was phenomenal, his legs were otherworldly, and he genuinely believed he had a shot at placing in the top 3 despite the injury.
But went to the 82 Olympia in London, he's starting to roll up. I could hide it perfectly. Nobody knew it would happen, but I made the mistake of telling somebody.
That somebody was Arnold Schwarzenegger, in what Platz would later describe as one of the most ruthless betrayals in competitive bodybuilding. Arnold, who was present at the competition in an official capacity, allegedly went directly to the judges and informed them about Platz's injury. This wasn't just friendly conversation, it was strategic sabotage designed to expose a competitor's weakness and influence the judging panel. The impact was immediate and devastating. During the competition, judges specifically called Platz forward and asked him to display his left bicep in various poses, something that would never normally happen unless judges had been specifically tipped off about a problem.
I told Arnold, and Arnold told the judge, and this judge told that judge. So when I went on stage, Tom, can you walk forward, please? Can you show me your left bicep? Oh my God.
The exposed flaw cost Platz dearly. He finished in 6th place at a competition where many believed he could have placed much higher with his incredible conditioning and legendary leg development.
Okay, it's over.
In seminars and interviews years later, Platz has been remarkably candid about the incident, describing it as a calculated act of competitive ruthlessness, while he acknowledged that the experience opened doors for him in other areas of the fitness industry and ultimately didn't destroy his career. The resentment over Arnold's betrayal remained. If Platz's story showed betrayal in daylight, the next one happened in the shadows. Ronnie Coleman. The night before Ronnie Coleman's first Mr. Olympia victory in 1998, one of the most bizarre sabotage attempts in bodybuilding history took place in a hotel room. Coleman, who would go on to become the most dominant Mr. Olympia champion in history with 8 consecutive titles, was targeted by competitor Kevin Levrone in what appeared to be a desperate attempt to derail the rising star's conditioning. Levrone invited Coleman to his hotel room under the guise of friendly conversation. Coleman, known for his humble personality and trusting nature, accepted the invitation without suspicion. What happened next would become the stuff of bodybuilding legend.
I said, listen, man, I said, you been carrying your food around. You're so serious, you're measuring out your food, you're doing, you gotta just relax, Ronnie. I said, won't you just have a seat, man, do a shot of his vodka with him. So he goes over to his coffee maker, pours the coffee in a cup. Then he goes to the refrigerator and pours out a bottle of vodka. And he pours that into the cup. And he said, drink that. I'm like,
I don't drink no alcohol, Kevin. You know that, I don't drink no alcohol, man. Man, bodybuilders can't do that.
I don't drink no vodka. I don't drink alcohol. I said, look, big dog. I said, listen, take a shot of this vodka, man. You'll be all right. I said, you know, just chill, man. Take it easy.
Coleman's initial resistance was exactly what any professional bodybuilder would exhibit. Alcohol causes water retention, bloating, and can create a soft or watery appearance on stage. The kiss of death in a sport where conditioning and definition are everything. For a bodybuilder at peak preparation, consuming alcohol the night before a show could be disastrous, potentially ruining months of preparation in a single evening. But Levrone was persistent, reassuring Coleman that it would help him relax and that one drink wouldn't hurt. Coleman, perhaps wanting to be polite or genuinely believing his competitor had his best interests at heart, reluctantly agreed. What started as one shot quickly became multiple shots as Levrone continued pouring. The strategy was clear. If Coleman showed up on stage with water retention and less definition than his competitors, it could cost him the title. In the razor-thin margins of Mr. Olympia judging, even slight conditioning issues can drop a competitor multiple placings. Levrone was betting that the alcohol would sabotage Coleman's appearance just enough to hand the victory to someone else, possibly himself. But there was one problem with this plan. Ronnie Coleman was built different, literally and figuratively. Not only did Coleman possess genetic advantages that few could match, but his work ethic and conditioning protocols were so dialed in that a few shots of vodka couldn't overcome months of perfect preparation. When Coleman stepped on stage the next day, he didn't look watery or bloated. He looked phenomenal. In fact, many observers noted that he appeared even more conditioned and confident than expected. Coleman won his first Mr. Olympia title that night, beginning a dynasty that would define an entire era of bodybuilding. The attempted sabotage had not only failed spectacularly, but may have actually motivated Coleman to bring his absolute best. In later interviews, Coleman revealed the truth about that night with Levrone, exposing the attempted sabotage for what it was, a desperate move by a competitor who could sense the changing of the guard. While Ronnie Coleman survived the sabotage, the next man wasn't so lucky. Mike Mentzer, the robbery at the 1980 Mr. Olympia. The 1980 Mr. Olympia in Sydney, Australia remains the most controversial competition in bodybuilding history, an event so tainted by allegations of corruption and favoritism that it permanently damaged the sport's credibility and drove multiple champions into early retirement. At the center of this controversy was Mike Mentzer, the brilliant heavy-duty training advocate who entered the competition in what many considered the best shape of his career. The drama began before the competition even started.
So the biggest problem was, since 1974, they started having 2 divisions in the Olympia. They had an under 200 pound class and an over 200 pound class. So they had it in 77, 78, 79 also. Right. Well, the problem with the 2 classes was the under 200 pound class was usually stacked with a lot of competitors. And then the over 200 wouldn't have as many people. But they would take 3 from each class. They would take 3 from the under and 3 from the over for the top 6. So a lot of times there was some guys in the under 200 pound class that should have been in the top 6 and they weren't in there.
Boyer Co. had proposed eliminating the weight class divisions to ensure the best bodybuilders truly competed for the top positions. A vote was called among all 16 competitors, and 15 agreed to the new format.
So Ben Weider said, yeah, that makes sense. So they took a vote with all the competitors, and all 16 competitors said, yes, let's just have 1 class, except for Arnold. Arnold was the only one.
Arnold was adamant that there were 2 classes. He was just being really stubborn about it and was refusing to bend.
There was a lot of arguing going on between Arnold and a few of the guys. It's a very large room. There must have been maybe 50 or 60 people in there, and Arnold, as usual, wanted to be the better.
What happened next became the stuff of bodybuilding legend, a backstage confrontation that nearly erupted into physical violence. When Boyer Coe tried to get Arnold to explain his reasoning, Arnold responded dismissively, questioning whether Coe was speaking like a man. This insult triggered Mike Mentzer, who immediately stood up to defend his fellow competitor.
Arnold says, no, we want 2 classes. So trying to be a diplomat, I stood up and I said, okay, Arnold, explain to us why you think you want 2 classes. What's the reason? And instead of saying, okay, well, boy, this is my reason, he says, well, why don't you talk like a man? And I'm thinking, well, hell, I'm giving you an opportunity to say something. And that's when Mike blew up.
So Mike Mentzer gets pissed off, and he goes, hey, he's just trying to ask you a question.
So I said, look, Boyer Coe said that as a gentleman, something to that effect. He doesn't deserve that. You just accused Boyer of acting like a baby, when in fact you're the one who's acting worse than that, and that pissed him off.
Arnold's response was to launch a completely unrelated personal attack on Mentzer's physique.
And then Arnold just took the most unbelievable shot at Mike.
Out of the blue and out of context, he made some snidey and childish remark about my Mentzer's guts.
He gets off the subject, he says, well, everybody knows why you didn't win last year. He says, your gut's too big.
Pulled out the mic in the way he said that got Mike really pissed off.
Mike took offense.
The confrontation escalated dramatically.
Mike, he didn't particularly like Arnold's rhetoric a lot. He let it be known.
So he loses it. He gets up and he goes over to Arnold.
Mike might even cock his arm back. He was ready to punch him.
And I thought Mike was going to walk over and pound him. Like, really, I said, we came so close to physical violence.
Only the intervention of other bodybuilders, particularly Bill Pearl, prevented what could have been an explosive physical altercation between 2 of the sport's biggest names. Arnold eventually backed down from the confrontation and agreed to the single-class format.
Arnold could sense he was on the losing end of this, and so he kind of acquiesced and said, okay, I withdraw my challenge, and we can go with 1 class, and that's fine.
Only once I stood up at the pre-judging meeting did that thing come to at least a partial halt. That irritated Ben Weider. He stood in between Arnold and I and tried to assert himself. It became very clear, especially later on as the day proceeded, that things weren't the way they should be.
But the real sabotage wasn't in the backstage arguments, it was in the judging itself. When the final results were announced, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had come out of retirement with reportedly subpar conditioning, was declared the winner. Mike Mentzer, who many believed deserved to win based on his superior physique, was placed 5th. The crowd erupted in boos, and the bodybuilding world was stunned. Mentzer would later call the 1980 Mr. Olympia bodybuilding's darkest hour, accusing Arnold of leveraging his friendship with promoter Joe Weider and his celebrity status to influence the judges. He retired from competition immediately afterward, refusing to participate in a sport he believed had been corrupted by politics and favoritism. The incident sparked debates that continue to this day about whether merit or fame matters more in professional bodybuilding, and whether the judging system can ever be truly objective when financial and promotional interests are at stake. The fallout from the 1980 Olympia went further than 1 placement. Chris Dickerson. While Mike Mentzer's 5th place finish at the 1980 Mr. Olympia drew the most attention, another bodybuilding legend was also victimized by what many believe was systematic judging bias. Chris Dickerson. Dickerson would go on to become bodybuilding's first openly gay Mr. Olympia champion in 1982, but in 1980, despite bringing what many considered superior conditioning and aesthetics, he was relegated to 4th place. Like Mentzer, Dickerson believed the competition had been rigged from the start to ensure Arnold Schwarzenegger's comeback victory. Multiple eyewitnesses described Schwarzenegger as noticeably underprepared compared to previous years, with visible smoothness in his conditioning and less detail than his competitors. Yet somehow, the judges awarded him 1st place, while more conditioned competitors like Dickerson were pushed down the rankings. In interviews over the years, Dickerson has used the metaphor of a stolen watch to describe the 1980 Olympia, like having something valuable taken from you that you can never get back. The opportunity to win Mr. Olympia in 1980 was stolen, and no amount of later success could erase that injustice. His testimonies consistently described the event as a calculated robbery, orchestrated to benefit a competitor with more star power and financial backing. The impact on Dickerson was profound. Following the 1980 debacle, he joined Mentzer and several other competitors in boycotting the 1981 Mr. Olympia, refusing to participate in what they viewed as a fundamentally corrupt system. This boycott movement represented a watershed moment in bodybuilding, where the sport's biggest stars collectively stood up against what they perceived as institutional sabotage through biased judging. Dickerson's case is particularly significant because it highlights how sabotage in bodybuilding isn't always about direct physical interference or psychological games. Sometimes the sabotage is systemic: judges with predetermined outcomes, promoters with financial incentives to push certain athletes, and a judging criteria subjective enough to allow favoritism to flourish. When Dickerson finally won Mr. Olympia in 1982, it was a bittersweet victory, coming 2 years after what should have been his first title. And Dickerson wasn't the only champion left frustrated and disillusioned that night. Even a 3-time defending champion would soon feel the sting of controversy. Frank Zane. Frank Zane, one of the most aesthetic bodybuilders ever to grace a stage and a 3-time Mr. Olympia champion, 1977 to 1979, was also caught in the controversy surrounding the 1980 Mr. Olympia. Coming off 3 consecutive victories and looking to defend his title for a 4th time, Zane brought what many observers considered excellent conditioning and aesthetics, his trademark. However, Zane faced a significant physical setback 8 weeks before the competition.
Were people upset that he won?
Some people were. But that was the nature of the competition. I mean, Mike Menser, a lot of people thought he should have won. I really wasn't at my best because I had a bad accident 8 weeks before, but I competed anyway. And there's a protruding lip on the side of the pool from the edge of the pool, and I smashed my urethra. And I recovered from it, but I wasn't really my best, although I was very defined. I could always get more definition than I did, but I was better the year before. And that's the thing about bodybuilding is really, for me anyway, I not only did I have to be better than everybody else, I had to be better than my previous self. And I was better maybe the year before than I was that year.
Despite his injury and admitting he wasn't at his absolute best, Zane still believed he had enough quality to place higher than 7th, where the judges ultimately ranked him. Like Menser and Dickerson, Zane felt the judging was predetermined to favor Arnold Schwarzenegger's comeback narrative, regardless of who actually brought the better physique. The controversy didn't just affect Zane's placing, it affected his relationship with the sport entirely. Following the 1980 Olympia, Zane boycotted future competitions, joining the growing movement of champions who refused to participate in what they viewed as a rigged system. For a 3-time champion to walk away from defending his titles speaks volumes about how deeply the perceived sabotage affected these athletes. Rumors circulated for years that Zane destroyed his trophy backstage in frustration, but he later clarified that he simply dropped it and left it there, having no desire to carry it home.
That year, Arnold decided to compete suddenly and come back because he retired previous to that, right? He wanted to make a comeback, and he won. And from what I understand, there was a lot of controversy. People were upset about it. I heard that you broke your trophy backstage. Is that true?
No, I just dropped it on the floor and left it there because I don't like traveling with trophies, especially the larger ones. I usually just take the nameplate off them, and that's what I did there. So those rumors are not true about me smashing the trophy against the wall. I never did that.
The act of leaving his trophy behind was symbolic. It represented his rejection of a competition he believed had been corrupted. Zane's boycott, combined with those of Menser, Dickerson, and others, sent a powerful message to the bodybuilding establishment that even champions would walk away, rather than participate in what they viewed as theatrical productions, masquerading as legitimate contests. Boyer Coe. Boyer Coe holds a unique position in bodybuilding sabotage history. He was both a victim of the 1980 controversy and the leader of the protest movement that followed. As one of the most respected competitors of his era, Coe had been instrumental in trying to reform the Mr. Olympia format before the 1980 disaster, advocating for the elimination of weight classes to ensure the best bodybuilders competed fairly. When his efforts were dismissed and the 1980 competition produced what he and many others viewed as a fraudulent result, Coe made a decision that would define his legacy. He would boycott the 1981 Mr. Olympia. This wasn't a quiet withdrawal, it was a public protest against what he believed was institutional corruption within the IFBB and among the judges who had allowed Arnold's victory despite questionable conditioning. Coe's boycott was joined by other high-profile athletes who had been present in 1980 and witnessed the controversy firsthand. Together, they hoped to force the bodybuilding establishment to acknowledge the problems with judging bias and implement meaningful reforms. Their message was clear: until judging became more objective and transparent, the sport's top athletes would refuse to lend their legitimacy legitimacy to competitions they viewed as predetermined. The 1981 Mr. Olympia went forward without Coe and several other top contenders, creating a competition that many fans viewed as less legitimate because of the absent champions. While the boycott didn't immediately transform the sport's judging practices, it did succeed in drawing widespread attention to the issues of favoritism and political influence in bodybuilding. Coe's willingness to sacrifice a potential Olympia victory to stand on principle earned him respect throughout the bodybuilding community and highlighted how perceived sabotage through biased judging could be just as damaging as any physical interference. Danny Padilla. Danny Padilla, known as the Giant Killer for his ability to compete against much taller bodybuilders despite standing just 5 feet 2 inches, joined Boyer Coe in boycotting the 1981 Mr. Olympia. Padilla had witnessed the 1980 controversy and concluded that participating in future Olympias would be pointless if judging was determined more by politics and star power than by physique quality. Padilla was particularly affected by the controversy because his career had been defined by overcoming size disadvantages through superior conditioning, symmetry, and proportion, the exact qualities that judges claim to value but seem to ignore when judging between Arnold and more conditioned competitors in 1980. If conditioning didn't matter, if aesthetics took a backseat to fame, what chance did a shorter bodybuilder have regardless of how perfect his physique? His boycott was both a protest against corrupt judging and a practical decision to protect his career and reputation. Padilla recognized that continuing to compete in what he believed were rigged competitions would only lend credibility to a flawed system. Like Coe, he was willing to sacrifice potential victories and prize money to make a statement about integrity in bodybuilding. The dual boycott by Coe and Padilla, combined with the earlier retirements of Menser and others, created a crisis of legitimacy for professional bodybuilding. When multiple champions refuse to compete, claiming the sport is rigged, it raises uncomfortable questions for fans, sponsors, and the federations themselves. While both men eventually returned to competition, their boycott left a lasting impact on how judges approached their responsibilities and how transparent scoring needed to be to maintain credibility. Ahmad Ashkenani. Our final case involves a different type of sabotage, not on stage, but in the critical post-competition media environment where bodybuilders build their brands and secure sponsorships. Ahmad Ashkenani, a prominent Kuwaiti bodybuilder, was competing at the Arnold Classic when he became involved in a physical altercation that originated from what he believed was professional interference during an interview. The incident occurred backstage when Ashkenani was attempting to conduct an interview with media outlets, a crucial opportunity for any bodybuilder to gain exposure, attract sponsors, and build their personal brand. According to reports and video footage, another individual physically interfered with the interview, leading to a confrontation that nearly escalated into a full-scale fight. While the exact motivations remain debated, the interference appeared designed to sabotage Ashkenani's media opportunities and diminish his professional exposure at a critical moment. In modern bodybuilding, where social media followings and sponsor relationships often matter as much as competition placings, denying a competitor access to media coverage can be as damaging as any stage-based sabotage. The confrontation highlighted how sabotage in bodybuilding has evolved beyond the traditional methods of stealing clothing or influencing judges. In today's digital age, sabotaging someone's interview or social media presence can directly impact their earning potential and career trajectory. For professional bodybuilders who rely on supplement sponsorships, training programs, and social media partnerships, media visibility is essential, making interference with that visibility a modern form of professional sabotage. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.